Over at BangTheBook.com, we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great stuff going on over there on a daily basis. Parker Michaels' NHL picks, Kyle Hunter's college basketball picks, Admir Algic and Alan Moody covering the NBA, Jonathan Willis and Corey Pabst covering college basketball. Got a preview up for this weekend's Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Got a preview up for the Honda Classic as well. Then we'll have a UFC preview from Christian Pina this week. My MLB betting guide should be rolling out next week, doing my final read-throughs and edits of my National League season win totals. Then I'll move on to all the future stuff for divisions, league, World Series, Home Run King, Cy Young, all that type of stuff. That's a much shorter write for me. So hopefully that MLB betting guide comes out here next week. Aiming for Monday or Tuesday. I want to make sure we try to give that enough lead time here with the season starting up. What about a month from today, March 28th? So a month from tomorrow, technically. So try to get that out to you so you can get all of the information that's in that, get situated for your season win totals. Then what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to do a betting tips guide on a player and an individual player level for all 30 teams around Major League Baseball. So that'll be something that I do here in the month of March once I get a little bit more time to do that. Finally, as you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. No first guest here, so I'm not exactly sure how the audio sounds. I know we had some audio issues at the top of yesterday's show. I hope those aren't too bad for you. And once again, still dealing with a little bit of that residual cough. So I'll make sure that I edit that out as I go throughout the process here. So if there are some awkward jump cuts or something like that, I do apologize for that. But as I said, had some listener requests to talk some more Major League Baseball here on the shows and in the lead up to the 2019 season. So I'll do that here today with the American League East. Just an overall overview here of what we've got going on in Major League Baseball right now. It is crazy to me to think that teams have been in spring training for about 2 weeks now, and in some cases about 2.5 weeks, and Bryce Harper still isn't signed. I mean, this is and Craig Kimbrell not signed, Dallas Keuchel not signed, guys like Carlos Gonzalez still not signed. So it's been a little bit of a challenge here to write my betting guide for the season win totals because we still have some impact players that are out there in the free agent market. But just sort of speaks to what we're looking at here in the Major League Baseball landscape right now. And, of course, kind of solidifies that we probably won't have a 2021 season as MLB and the MLBPA are, basically at odds with everything that's going on from a contract standpoint for the players here. So, very interesting offseason, one unlike any that I can remember. Still some guys out there that can have an impact for some of these teams. So as I go through and do this stuff, as I do the betting guide, as we release things like that, keep in mind that obviously some of these signings that are left to be made could seriously impact these teams that are out there. So with that, let's take a look at the American League East here. Going to roll through these in alphabetical order. So we'll start with the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore Orioles last season, 47-115. About as bad as it could get for Baltimore. Buck Showalter out of the equation now. Their season win total coming into this season, 60.5. Look at the depth charts projections over at Fangraphs. Got them down for 62-100. Pacoda, 57-105. I'm going to lean under here, but this is a very dangerous situation when you're looking at betting a season win total with a team expected to lose 100 games. Last year, 3 teams lost 100 games. No teams lost 100 games in 2017. 1 team in 2016. No teams in 2015 or 2014. 2 teams in 2013. So 6 teams over the last 6 years have lost 100 or more games. So it does happen, but again, an average of 1 team per season. So it is very, very hard, extremely hard to bet on a team to lose 100 games, which is essentially what you're doing with Baltimore. This is basically a prop bet. Will the Orioles lose 100 games, yes or no? And, there are some significant lineup worries for this team. This is a very bad lineup. It's not a very good pitching staff either. The lineup, you've got guys like Jonathan VR who, have a proven Major League track record. Trey Mancini, Mark Trumbo, if those guys can get healthy. Chris Davis is not going to be nearly as bad as he was last season. But still, there's not a whole lot to like about this lineup. Now, you do see the Orioles pivoting to analytics. They hire Mike Elias, they hire Sig Mejdal, they hire Brandon Hyde, who was the bench coach of the Chicago Cubs. So they are pivoting more towards the numbers side of things. What we've generally seen with teams that are making that pivot is that the pitching gains come faster than the hitting gains. And really, this makes a lot of sense because I think you've got more control on the pitching side because of how you can sequence, because of how you can game plan. When it comes to hitting, you want to try and smooth out hitter mechanics and things of that sort, but really it's just about having talented guys. Yes, you can change your offensive philosophy to be more of a fly ball team, more of a ground ball team, something like that, but really you just need the talent. And a lot of times you're a bad team because you don't have that hitting talent. I think it's easier to maximize every drop of pitching potential than it is to maximize hitting potential. So we do tend to see that teams that make this pivot to analytics do improve on the pitching side quicker than they do on the hitting side. So with that being said, I do think that Baltimore will be a team that tilts more toward the under than the over overall here this season. I just think that this lineup is very, very bad. They're not particularly strong defensively. And, it's going to be interesting to see how their games are lined because Oriole Park at Camden Yards, traditionally a very good offensive park. They had the worst pitching staff in baseball last year. I think they had a team ERA in the 5.20 or 5.30 range, something like that. So this is a team that, no one's going to have high expectations for the pitching staff. A lot of 9s, 9.5s, maybe some 10s out there with this team. But I think the pitching has a good chance to improve quicker than the offense does. So, again, I do lean under here with Baltimore, but as I said, only one team per season over the last 6 years losing over 100 games on average. And with the Orioles, that's what you're looking for here this season. Now, a pitcher to watch for the Baltimore Orioles here is Alex Cobb. Last year in the first half, Alex Cobb allowed a .310 batting average with a .358 on-base percentage and a .541 slugging percentage. All in all, came out to a .378 weighted on-base average against. For those that are new to my baseball content, you will hear me use WOBA a lot. You will hear me use slash line a lot. You will hear me use pitcher slash a lot as well, which is ERA/FIP/xFIP, a pretty good indicator of positive or negative regression. But with Alex Cobb here, very bad first half. Again, .378 WOBA against. In the second half, though, .229 batting average against, .288 on-base percentage against, .377 slugging percentage against. So from .310, .358, .541 in the first half to .229, .288, .377 in the second half. And this was not smoke and mirrors. For Alex Cobb last year, average exit velocity against in the first half, 89.3 miles per hour. In the second half, 86.5 miles per hour. So basically had better command across the board and did a better job of limiting hard contact, which is something I focus on a lot as we go throughout the season here. When you look specifically at Alex Cobb, his bread and butter pitch is his changeup. Now, PitchFX classifies it as a splitter. StatCast does as well, but it is more of a changeup than anything else. In the first half, that pitch, 86.1 miles per hour average exit velocity against. In the second half, 83.4 miles per hour exit velocity against on average. So basically what we saw with Alex Cobb was a guy that got better, shook off the rust, and got a better feel for his premier pitch. So in terms of looking at the Orioles here, it's going to be hard to find spot plays to bet on them because they're going to be that bad. But Alex Cobb is a guy that I do really like in this starting rotation, a guy I think could have some significant value for us here this season. We move on to the reigning World Series champions here, the Boston Red Sox. Their season win total 95.5. Last year, 108-54 in the regular season, 11-3 in the playoffs. One of the most dominant teams we've seen in quite some time. And in fact, as I mentioned before, a mea culpa for me on this one, I picked against them every step of the way in the playoffs last year. Took the Yankees, took the Astros, took the Dodgers. They wound up beating all of them. Really had no problems with any of them either. Again, 11-3 in the postseason. Now, why did I pick against Boston in the playoffs? Well, last year they were +9 in base runs record. I've mentioned base runs before. It is a statistic, an alternate standings metric, I should say, that I will use a lot over the course of the season. It eliminates context. It is a context-neutral run differential system that then spits out a win-loss record. So with the example that I've used before, single, home run, strikeout is 3 runs. Home run, single, strikeout is 1 run. So it's all about sequencing. And a lot of times sequencing is just happenstance. It's just random occurrence. Now, of course, the Red Sox, because they have the best offense in baseball, are going to have more run-scoring opportunities. So in retrospect, I probably should have considered that a little bit more last year, not calling their offense an overachiever, but simply looking at it in terms of the fact that they were going to have a lot more opportunities than a lot of their counterparts. However, talk about the concept of cluster luck. And a lot of times you see that come to fruition in the base runs metrics. With the bases empty last year, Boston hit .258 as a team with a .321 on base percentage and a .436 slugging percentage. With runners in scoring position, those numbers jumped to .289 average, .379 on base, .493 slugging. So Boston did overachieve offensively. Now, again, they will have a larger sample size of possibilities because their offense is so good, but their batting average was 31 points higher with runners in scoring position, on base percentage 58 points higher, slugging percentage 57 points higher. So for Boston, I would expect a little bit of offensive regression here this year, and that's concerning to me because they've had a lackluster offseason. They lost Craig Kimbrell, they lost Joe Kelly, didn't replace either one of them. Say what you will about Drew Pomerantz and all of his injuries, but when he was out there, he was a solid contributor. I do like Zach Putnam. I do like Eduardo Rodriguez. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think that the Red Sox do have a lot of upside, a lot of potential, and I would look to go over their season win total of 95.5, but I would expect some offensive regression from them just a little bit because they do still have, from a talent standpoint, the best offense in baseball. Who's the pitcher to watch for the Red Sox here for me? That guy is Rick Porcello. I think Rick Porcello is a straight fade candidate. Now, Porcello was a fade guy for me going into the 2017 season as well. Posted a .465 ERA with a .460 FIP and a .443 xFIP. So that fade of Porcello worked out very, very well for us in 2017. I would expect him to struggle here in 2019 as well. 23.5% strikeout percentage last year, which was a career high for him. But the problem for Porcello is that his swinging strike rate was only 8.7%. League average is 10.2%. So he really overachieved in the strikeout department. And as a guy with average to below average command, any regression in the strikeout department is going to hurt him in a very big way. So because I'm not believing the strikeout increase, I would expect his BABIP to go up. I would expect his ERA and his FIP to go up as well. His BABIP last year dropped 39 points from what it was in 2017. Usually when you see a strikeout increase, the batting average on balls in play will go up because of the smaller sample size of balls in play. Didn't work out that way for Porcello, and in fact, he saw almost a 40-point drop. So he is a definite fade guy to me. I expect the strikeout rate to come back to earth. I expect the BABIP to go up. I expect the command to continue to be average to below average. So Rick Porcello, on a regular basis for me this year, will very clearly be one of my top fade candidates in the American League and really in baseball overall. Let's go to the New York Yankees here. Last year, 100 wins, 62 losses. They make it into the playoffs, win the wild card game, get knocked out by the Boston Red Sox, who eventually go on and win the World Series. Their season win total here this year, 96.5. Depth charts project. I guess I should go back for a second here. Depth charts projections for the Red Sox, 96 and 66. PECOTA, 90 and 72. So I should actually talk about that for a minute because I mentioned on Monday's show when I talked about the Cubs PECOTA projection that PECOTA really heavily weighs defense into the equation. The Red Sox here projected to go 90 and 72 via PECOTA with an elite defensive projection. This, to me, is a projection that is even more interesting than the Cubs being a 79 and 83 team. Now, what this is probably a regression of the offense. As I mentioned, they were an overachiever, And they were a little bit of an overachiever on the pitching side as well in terms of doing a very good job of straining runners at a high rate. A lot of times, much like we saw with the Red Sox offense, when you get runners in scoring position, you will be a better offensive team than with the bases empty because all the pressure is on the pitcher. You've got different fielding alignments because they're trying to keep guys from getting a big secondary lead at second, or if you've got runners on first, they're holding that guy on first, bigger hole on the right side of the infield. We usually see teams have more hardships when they are pitching with men on base or runners in scoring position. That wasn't the case for Boston last year. So essentially what we're looking at with their PECOTA projection here is regression on both sides in high leverage situations. And that is one of the reasons why I picked against them in the playoffs, because that is a development that I expected as the games gained some more importance. Didn't wind up working out that way. And in fact, they were even better in the playoffs in both of those areas than they were during the regular season. So, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You're making a lot of educated guesses based on the signs and statistics that are out there in terms of these regression candidates and these regression areas. So for Boston, that PECOTA projection really, really stands out to me in a very interesting way because they are projected to be very good defensively. The bullpen does have some concerns, as I mentioned, with the losses of Kimbrel and Kelly, but that's a fascinating PECOTA projection for Boston and one that there aren't enough people talking about. And I'll try to dig a little bit more into that here as we approach the season. Anyway, to go back to the Yankees here, 162 last year, season win total 96.5 this year. Depth charts pegs them at 95 and 67, second best record in baseball behind the Red Sox. PECOTA has them at 97 and 65. So again, very big difference in the PECOTA projection for the Yankees versus the Red Sox. I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag here. I like the over for New York, and they're my World Series pick as of right now. They have an elite bullpen. They only lost David Robertson. They swap him out for Adam Ottavino. Really love David Robertson, but Ottavino may even have a higher ceiling as long as he stays healthy. Maybe Aroldis Chapman has some better health this year as well. Real dark horse in this Yankees bullpen I want you to keep an eye on, Tommy Kahnle. Tommy Kahnle is a guy that had a very, very strong season with the White Sox just a few years ago, got traded to the Yankees in the David Robertson deal, I believe. He's a guy that got hurt. And something I will keep an eye on, and maybe I'll try to come up with a list of these guys at BangTheBook.com, or maybe I'll include them in some of my early MLB betting picks pieces, but guys that spend the winter preparing for the season instead of rehabbing an injury are a big deal for me. And I think Tommy Kahnle can be a much bigger bullpen weapon for the Yankees this year, and that's scary. When you talk about the turnaround for Dellin Betances, when you talk about Ottavino, Chapman, Chad Green is a guy whose raw stuff I love. So Jonathan Holder, very good as well. So I think Kahnle could be another guy in this Yankees bullpen that winds up being a real big deal. The offense is very good. They were second in weighted on base average last year to the Boston Red Sox, interestingly enough. I think the offense is stronger and deeper this year with guys like Luke Voit, DJ LeMahieu, good contact bat there. He's also a very good defensive player, so I think the defensive alignment should be stronger for the Yankees as well. But obviously the big thing here is the rotation. They add James Paxton. They get a full season of J. Happ. Even with some full season regression that's coming for Paxton and Happ, and I'll talk more about Paxton here in a minute. Sabathia is a very underappreciated guy in the betting markets. Elite contact management skills. We all know Severino's a front of the rotation starter. And then you've got Masahiro Tanaka, who just keeps doing his job and doing it pretty well, despite some damage to that ulnar collateral ligament. So the rotation is better. I think the lineup is better, and the bullpen is better here for the Yankees, I should say. So I do really like them. I think there are a lot of compelling reasons to take the Yankees as a World Series pick here for this season, and also look for their season win total over. Now, that being said, the player to watch for me here with the Yankees is James Paxton. James Paxton goes from the 26th ranked park factor to the 5th ranked park factor. And he loses a place like Oakland Coliseum, which is a pretty good place to pitch. Angel Stadium, pretty good place to pitch. So you lose Safeco, you lose Oakland, you lose Anaheim, and what do you add? Well, your home ballpark is Yankee Stadium. You add Fenway, which is one of the very good offensive parks. Rogers Center, which if you're a fly ball hitter, Rogers Center is a very good park up there in Toronto. And then Camden Yards, a very good offensive park as well. Tropicana Field is not a good offensive park. I'll talk about that in a minute. So Paxton does get a little bit of relief there. But, he goes from a division that has a lot of good pitchers parks to a division that has a lot of bad pitchers parks. And last year he tilted more towards the fly ball side. That'll be something I'm watching here closely. And also, something I've talked about with the Yankees here before, one of the things that they've tried to incorporate, one of the reasons why Sonny Gray didn't work out, is that they've tried to limit fastball usage for their pitchers. And I was very concerned about this with the acquisition of Jay Happ last year, who's a 70% fastball guy. After his acquisition over the last 2 months of the season, they did leave well enough alone. They let Jay Happ use his arsenal the way that he wanted to, the way that he has historically in his career. Will they allow James Paxton to do the same thing? Paxton, 65% fastball usage, according to the Pitch Info Solutions data over at Fangraphs. Does use his cutter a lot and his curveball a lot. How much do the Yankees try to push that cutter and curveball usage? Because Paxton is also a guy, while he's very, very good when healthy, he has had some shoulder issues and some shoulder discomfort here over the last few years. If he goes to more of that cutter curve arsenal, shelving the four-seam fastball, does that hurt his command? Does that hurt his health and durability? I will be watching James Paxton very, very closely here this season. I think he's overpriced early and often this year. And also, throwing to Gary Sanchez is not any fun. Gary Sanchez is a good offensive piece. He's good at throwing out runners. He is one of the worst receivers in Major League Baseball. How much does that hurt James Paxton? It remains to be seen. But, again, overall, Paxton and Happ for the full season are upgrades. Even with regression coming for Paxton, they are upgrades over what the Yankees previously had. But Paxton is a guy that I will watch very, very closely for all of the reasons I mentioned. The park factor changes, health, arsenal usage, and then also having to throw to Gary Sanchez is something that I'd be pretty worried about. We'll see if maybe Paxton throws to the backup or something like that. But definitely a development that I will be watching very, very closely here, especially early on in the season. Tampa Bay Rays, 90-72 last year. This year, their season win total, 84.5. Depth charts and PECOTA both have the Rays at 85-77. And look, we all know what they did with the opener last year. Turned baseball on its head. Had the third best ERA from May 21st on. The opener concept worked splendidly. It worked really, really well. And you sort of wonder here now, how will they follow it up this year? Because they've got three bona fide starting pitchers. You've got Blake Snell coming off of the Cy Young. You've got Charlie Morton, who I think is a fantastic signing for this team. High spin rates on his fastball and his curveball. Really, really good raw stuff as long as he's healthy. And then Tyler Glasnow. And a lot of people very, very excited about Tyler Glasnow. Lots of hype for him. I mentioned this in my Rays write-up in the betting guide. I also mentioned this last year when Glasnow was, making his the Rays. He's 6'7", and it's very hard for a pitching coach to see things from that perspective. And I don't mean that in a funny way. I just mean that a lot of guys are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". A lot of guys are similar in that regard. Glasnow was a guy who didn't really know how to maximize his arsenal, didn't really know how to tunnel as well, keep his pitches on different planes. Well, his pitching coach in Tampa is 6'7" Kyle Snyder. So there's a lot of hype for Glasnow. He's throwing with more tilt. The stuff looks sharper. The fastball looks crisp. The curveball looks really good. A lot of hype for him. He's a very popular guy coming into the season. But now when you look at what they're going to do with the other two spots, continuing to utilize the opener concept is reliant on the bulk relievers doing their jobs. Ryan Yarbrough last year, 16-4 win-loss record, 313 WOBA against. Yanni Chirinos, 276 WOBA against. Those are probably the two primary guys that will follow the openers here. Those are the guys who really have to do their jobs. The openers have to throw that first inning and just go out there, let it all hang out, throw gas, get swings and misses. But it's those bulk relievers that are really the key to this opener concept. How do Yarbrough, Chirinos, Austin Pruitt, some of the other guys that they have in this picture, how do they do here this season as a follow-up? That's a big key to the year for the Rays. Another big key, this is a fascinating team for a variety of different reasons, But how about this? I've talked over the last couple of years about launch angles and the launch angle revolution and teams hitting more fly balls, hitting for more power, stuff like that. Well, Major League Baseball did make some alterations to the baseballs last year with how they were stored pregame and things like that. So we did see home runs go down from 2017 to 2018. What we saw the Tampa Bay Rays do is they're at the forefront of the ground ball revolution. Ground balls do go for hits more often than fly balls. So that's kind of the thought process here for Tampa Bay. Last year, their opposite field percentage led the league at 28%. And in ground ball batting average, they were 23 points higher than any other team. The team that was second was the Houston Astros. Tampa batted .283 on ground balls last season. So now you sort of look at this team and wonder, how sustainable is that? They were 16th in ground ball exit velocity, so it's not like they were hitting harder ground balls than anybody else. Led baseball in batting average on balls in play at .317, and they added Avisail Garcia, Yandy Diaz, then traded for Tommy Pham last year. All guys that hit the ball hard, hit a lot of ground balls, and can carry high batting averages on balls in play. The sabermetrician in me wants to look at this for regression because high BABIPs generally tend to regress. I'm not a big fan of hitting ground balls. I prefer fly balls and line drives. Hit for power, hit for extra base hits. Maybe the Rays are onto something here. And also, very significant home road splits for Tampa Bay last season. They were 51-30 at home, 39-42 on the road. Tropicana Field, 23rd in offensive park factor, bottom 10 in home run park factor. So they're kind of trying to play to the strengths of Tropicana Field with this ground ball revolution. But when you go out on the road and play at Yankee Stadium, Fenway, Camden Yards, it's harder to compete against better offenses in those types of ballparks. So for the Rays, I would expect them to be good at home again. On the road, though, I would expect them to have their fair share of challenges. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch for Tampa Bay here as we go throughout the season this year. How sustainable is this ground ball-based offense? I don't know, but I'll be watching it very, very closely. Now, as far as a pitcher to watch here, obviously it's Blake Snell. Coming off of the Cy Young year, 189 ERA, 295 FIP, 316 xFIP, 88% left on base percentage. Have to expect that to regress. I don't think he all of a sudden becomes a stiff or anything like that. But, an ERA in the 310, 315, 320 range would not surprise me at all. We'll have to see how he's priced coming into the season because a lot of times those ERA to xFIP guys do see immediate line movement. I would expect throughout the month of April, people do bet against Blake Snell. So if you're looking to get some line value early on in the season, probably worth your while to fade him and see what he's able to do. And furthermore, see if the Rays can continue this offensive onslaught by hitting the ball on the ground. One more team here to look at in the American League East is the Toronto Blue Jays. 73-89 last season. Their season win total this year, 75.5. Depth charts has them at 77-85. Pacoda has them at 76-86. The Blue Jays are a low average, low on base percentage, high slugging percentage team. So they're going to hit a lot of solo home runs. They're not going to manufacture big innings. So you want to keep that in mind here with this team that they're just not going to put up a lot of gaudy offensive numbers unless they hit a lot of solo and two-run shots. So low average, low on base percentage, high slugging team. Probably want to look to play them against pitchers that have a really bad command, especially at Rogers Center or at some of the other hitter-friendly parks. Rogers Center suppresses ground ball batting average. So being a high slugging percentage team does make a lot of sense for this lineup. And the lineup is moderately interesting, but it would be a lot more interesting if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was going to start the season with the team. He's not going to. They're going to manipulate his service time clock. That's a shame because we should be able to see this kid play on a daily basis. They're not a good defensive team. They did get a big upgrade at shortstop with Freddie Galvis. So against ground ball pitchers, when they have a ground ball pitcher going, I'd look to play unders with this team. Here's the thing about their depth charts projection. Again, their season win total is 75.5. Depth charts projection 77-85. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is projected for 25% of their Fangraphs WAR for position players. 5.1 is his projected F-WAR for this season. As a position player group, the Blue Jays are projected for 20.4 F-WAR. Guerrero's not even going to start the season with the team. So he accounts for 25% of their WAR projection among position players, and he's not even going to start the season with the team. That's a big-time problem for this Toronto Blue Jays team, so I do lean under with them. Last year, the Blue Jays 16-41 against the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays, but 14-5 against the Baltimore Orioles. So 14 of their 73 wins coming against Baltimore, just 16 of their 73 wins coming against the rest of the division. So obviously for Toronto here, they can play with bad teams, but against good teams, they're going to have a lot of problems. That's what we saw with them last year, going 16-41 in those 57 games against the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays. Pitcher to watch here for the Blue Jays is Marcus Stroman. 5.54 ERA last year, 3.91 FIP, 3.84 xFIP. He had a 60.5% left on base percentage. That was the lowest among pitchers with at least 100 innings pitched last year. So this is one of those situations for the Toronto Blue Jays where I think Stroman is a guy in line for some positive regression because of that low left on base percentage. Left on base percentage is an important statistic to look at when you're talking about positive or negative regression. I just mentioned it with Blake Snell at 88%. You would expect that to come down. Stroman, 60.5%. You would expect that to go. League average about 72% in terms of left on base percentage. So Stroman is the guy to watch here for the Blue Jays. But again, as I mentioned, a team that I just don't have very high hopes for. And without Vladimir Guerrero Jr., very, very tough for them offensively at the start of the year. So those are my thoughts on the 5 American League East teams. I'll try to do I'll try to do the American League Central here as soon as I can and try to get through these 6 divisions, time permitting, on Bang the Book Radio. So